If you're feeling a bit shit, a bit down in the dumps, a bit sorry for yourself, maybe a bit anxious as well, then hopefully this video is going to help you out, and we're going to give you a bit of an action plan. I heard Andrew Huberman, who's a contemporary scientist, studies neurology, say in a podcast the other week, addiction can be defined as the progressive narrowing of things that give you pleasure. A good life can be defined as the progressive expansion of things that give you pleasure. So if we're defining addiction and a good life in those terms, then most people are probably addicted, right? So things that spike your dopamine, sex, alcohol, junk food, like high energy dense foods, when we're constantly engaging in that and constantly spiking our dopamine really high, we need a lot higher amounts of dopamine just to be normal, just to feel okay. So if you're constantly spiking it, there's less and less things that you can derive pleasure from. Whereas if you're not constantly spiking your dopamine, and your dopamine, is relatively, it's just a normal level, then just small little things, you can derive pleasure from just small little social interactions with people. Yeah, you can derive pleasure from just like a small piece of chocolate or something like that. Yeah, but it doesn't happen straight away. There's a book called Dopamine Nation, which talks about how it takes at least 4 weeks of abstinence from something for your brain to find homeostasis, for everything to find balance. So you need at least 4 weeks of abstinence before you realize how much of a difference it's making, before you have that contrast. Oh, this is how I feel without that kind of like constant spike in dopamine. Does that make sense? So if you stop it for a couple of days, you're not going to know what how much of an impact it's actually having until you stop it for at least 4 weeks, whether that's sex, social media, social interactions, food, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is. Yeah. So 4 weeks. Okay. 4 weeks, you need to knock it on the head. If you're feeling like crap and you find that fewer and fewer things are giving you pleasure, you feel like shit unless you've had a drink. You feel like shit unless you're having sex or about to have sex. You feel like shit unless you're going to have like a big junk food meal or whatever. Or you feel like shit unless you're eating sweets. You feel like, you know what I mean? If you don't feel good unless you're having those things or engaging in those activities, that's a really big red flag to say, like, knock that shit on the head for a bit. Yeah, it's not forever, but you need to have that contrast. You need to know how good you can feel without that stuff. Because your brain is telling you, your mind is saying, right, I feel like shit, so I'm going to have that stuff to make me feel better. It's not working, is it? It's not working over the long term. It's like spending on a credit card of money you don't have. May feel good in the moment. It may make logical sense in the moment. I want that stuff. I can get the money to get that stuff, so I buy it. But then you don't think about down the line, the effect it's going to have. So it's the same sort of principle. So see all those things like loan sharks. Don't engage with it just for the 4 weeks. Just for the 4 weeks. After you've cut it all out for 4 weeks, you are going to enjoy just life in general a lot more. Just small little social interactions with people, views of stuff, just the silly stuff that a lot of people see. I don't know how you derive pleasure from nature or, just bumping into people and having small little social interactions. Most people think, how do you get pleasure from that? How do you enjoy that? So yeah, this is the way that I approach it, and it seems to work. Because over the last few days, like I've been in Wales, and I've been having too many cookies and a couple of beers here and there, and it's fine. But when you kind of like start justifying it and you start doing it more frequently, and I could notice that creeping in just over the last week, I'm like, here it goes again. Because I wake up and I feel like my mood is a little bit, it's not as elevated as it usually is. So I can feel the slump coming on. I'm like, I'm cutting that stuff out for a bit, even though it's only been like a week that I've been kind of like indulging a little bit more than I should. Well, it's life. It's an art form. So you've got to decide where the point of diminishing returns is for you. But it's definitely a good idea to nip it in the bud for a bit. You'll feel a shitload better for it. And in fact, go into suffering. Do stuff that you know is difficult and challenging, that you've been putting off, that you know that you're going to feel better for down the road. One being exercise, you lazy shit. Get to the gym, all right? All right. Hopefully this video has helped. Let me know if it has in the comments.